Good afternoon. Welcome in Power Mizzou Live. I am Gabe DeArmond, the publisher, and this is our regular Thursday afternoon show. We are going to talk a little bit Mizzou, Memphis, 6:30 Saturday night. I just learned it is now called the Dome at America Center. I plan to call it the Edward Jones Dome because that's what I know it as, but it apparently is no longer the Edward Jones Dome, and Edward Jones is not a sponsor, so I'll refer to it as the Dome at America Center going forward. But Mizzou and Memphis, 6:30. Appreciate all you all joining us. If you're watching live, feel free to throw some comments in the comment queue. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, do all those things. You'll get notifications when we go live, as our guy Jarod, a regular contributor, has done. Always appreciate Jarod and anybody else that tosses us a little bit extra for spending time with you guys. So thank you. And we will now bring in Jarod Hamilton, our resident expert here, who's going to tell you all exactly what's going to happen on Saturday and all that. Jarod, let's get to it, man. Brady Cook, we fully expect he's playing on Saturday, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even before the Mizzou tweeted pictures that he was playing or that he was practicing yesterday, I mean, based off him just finishing the game, I know you could say adrenaline and all that, but I was just like, he played way too well. I mean, even though they couldn't do any run game stuff, I didn't think it limited him that much. And even in his post game, he was just kind of like, I'll be fine. He wasn't worried, so he should play.
Yeah, I mean, I asked him, what's it take to knock you out of a game? And he said, something's got to be broken. We know it's not broken. There's no ligament damage. He might be a little limited, might be the mobility, but I think once he gets out there, I think he'll play his game. But here's the interesting thing to me. I think in an ideal world, we actually do see Sam Horn in this game. Because I think if Missouri has a chance to get Brady out and give him a break, I think they'll do it.
I don't. I don't. I haven't seen it for them to do that. Brady can go. Brady will go the whole way. I mean, as long as he doesn't show anything that's more noticeable than when he goes into the game, I think they're just going to play him the whole way.
But say you're up, I don't know.
No, Gabe, you don't have to convince me. I think you're absolutely right. They should, but I don't know if they will.
So they're up 28-10 with 8 minutes left. They're not giving Sam Horn the last two drives, you don't think?
With 8 minutes left?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's really, maybe a drive or two. They could. They could. I would. I get it, but
I think you do it. And look, you can always go Andy Reid in game 17 of Mahomes' rookie year. Like, he goes out, gets him a big lead. They put in whoever the backup was, and all of a sudden the team falls apart, and he goes, no, we're put this kid back in and win the game. You can always do that if you need to.
Yeah, they could, but not. You know how this guys. You know how they fund it. Cook all the way, all the way.
If it's a close game, it's Cook all the way. I mean, I think personally, I learned how much trust they have in Sam Horn when he came in and handed the ball off 2 times. Like, in a game that Drinkwitz told us the plan was to throw the ball, we weren't going to run it that much. When Sam Horn came in, they handed the ball off twice and got Brady back on the field. That told me what they think right now.
Even if they would have had him throw a screen or a quick hitch or a little drag, a slant, something, you would have been like, no matter, even if he was in there for 1 play, 2 plays, a whole quarter, you would have thought, like Drink said actually a couple of weeks ago, when Sam's in the game, they need to turn it all the way up and act like he's the quarterback going forward. Like, they have to give him the full playbook when he's in there.
Yeah, that hadn't happened quite yet. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll understand this next comment. We just got to be careful. Everything got to be positive here in the last 20 minutes or so, Jarod. We don't want to end up on Twitter videos. We just everything's positive.
Oh, there's a video? I've got to see. I got to see.
So, yeah, I'll tell you about it later. But anyway, I can see, we were talking before we started here. Like, how big a worry is a letdown here?
How big of the worry is? It can happen, but I haven't really thought too much about it. They're good at they sold this week pretty well as far as just like we're moving on. I feel like I'm good at seeing through some of the stuff they say. I felt like okay, y'all passed it a little bit.
I,
They were good at selling us before the K-State game that it wasn't really that big a game. It's just
right.
another.
I think Eli Drinkwitz understands it's a concern. I think he and the coaching staff will do everything they can to convince these kids all week long that Memphis can absolutely beat them. There was so much put into that game by the fans and the team and the coaches. Like, I don't think it's going to be a letdown that beats them, but I could see a letdown that leads to like a slow start, like you're down, 10-3 midway through the second quarter type of game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Memphis is averaging like 40 points per game, and they've got I think they're averaging like 450 yards total offense or something like that. I mean, so they can move the ball and they can put up points. Got a dynamic running back in there, do a lot of things. So yeah, like you said, it's possible they could be a little sluggish, going into the game, but I haven't thought about them like losing the game because of like a complete letdown the whole way.
No, I agree. I think it's a game where even if you've got a letdown, like you wake up in time. I just think it's maybe kind of a game where late second, early third quarter, Missouri's fans and maybe even Missouri players are going, "Oh, hang on, I didn't think it was going to be like this," and they've got to kind of kick it into gear. Andrew's asking what the line is. I haven't seen it lately. It opened at 7, then it kind of went off the board today when Brady Cook got hurt. What now?
I'm sorry. It was at 7. It dropped to 5.5, and then I checked earlier today. I seen 6.5 at 1. But see, Brandon's saying 6 or 5.5, depending on how you use. Yeah, I've seen between 6 and 6.5 and up to 5.5.
Yeah. So it's kind of in that range, just under a touchdown. Which I don't know. You are our opponent research guy, and we're going to have Bryan Moss on from our rival site that covers Memphis here in a few minutes, and we'll talk to him about it. But what are your first impressions of Memphis and what problems they might cause here?
As far as their offense, like I said, Blake Watson, the running back, he's already got 8 total touchdowns, 4 receiving, 4 rushing. He had like 170 or I guess 169 yards on just 10 carries last week. He had a couple 60-yard runs. I think he's leading them in receiving too. So he's their do-it-all, everything guy. And then defensively, I've seen some stats where they're like top 10 in takeaways. I think they're tied for first in pass defense and stuff like that. I do think it's a bit misleading just because of I can't remember who their first 2 opponents were, but it was just like, and then they played Navy last week, who doesn't really throw the ball. So like some of the passing stats you feel like are just like their defensive stats is kind of like misleading. I don't know if they're that good on defense.
Right. Yeah. Memphis's first 2 games, they had a 93-17 scoring margin against Bethune-Cookman and an Arkansas State program that has completely fallen apart. Like, this is not Arkansas State from, 5 years ago, even. They've fallen on hard times there. So I don't put a lot of stock in those 2. And then Navy, I just don't put a lot of stock in because it's like this standalone game. Like, I would hate to play Navy in week 3 because you've got to prepare for them completely different than you prepare for anything else all season long.
And it's hard to carry over that film in a way to some of the stuff you want to go into your next opponent in your next game.
Yeah. Now, if there is anything worth noting, I mean, Navy's quarterbacks were 10 of 20 passing for 133 yards. Like, that's not great, but it's kind of great for Navy.
Yeah.
Like,
Navy
I think maybe there's going to be some windows to throw the football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Navy did have a little bit of success, but again, that's not terribly high volume or efficiency, going 50%. But we'll see.
Yeah, before Bryan jumps on here, I want to get to a couple kind of interesting questions. Mizzou beat Alas. Is there any worry that K-State was just not very good?
I think K-State is pretty decent. I mean, they won. Remember, Missouri won off a 61-yard conference record winning field goal. And I'm not trying to make it seem like it was luck or anything. Missouri won that game. They came back 4 different times. They played well enough. Missouri showed that they're better than what we thought they were. But Kansas State is very much a formidable opponent, and they're still going to be around that top 25 range, I think, for a good part of the season.
And see, what you said is kind of the key there. If there's worry that K-State's not good, then Missouri must not be good either, because
you barely just beat
right. You needed a 61-yard field goal to win that game at the end, and that is one thing that, like, the roller coaster of emotions that being a fan is. Like, a week ago, everything was wrong because you only beat Middle Tennessee by 4, and I get it. I was there with you. And this week, everything is like, I wonder if there's been a little bit of overreaction. Like, that was a good game, but Missouri was one play from, like, we did the whole thing last year, how close they were to being 8-4. Like, whatever their record is at the end of this year, this is one of those, hey, it was a 1-score game and you made the play and you deserve credit for that. And I'm not trying to take that credit away. I'm just saying that game, you change one thing in that game and it goes the other direction, and there's a whole different feeling. So, it's just at least worth thinking about. The other thing I wanted to get to is Josh Randall. Zerny thought last game was the outlier, and we come out like we did the first 2 games against Memphis.
Depending on which offense you see. You see the offense you see versus Kansas State, then maybe you're in better shape to come out to a fast start. If they, for whatever reason, are just like, we're only saving this for SEC opponents or people we think are, prominent teams, they may be in trouble.
Yeah. Missouri can't think that going into this is not a team that you can just roll the helmets out and run your base plays and
with the win. That is true.
I think the biggest thing about last week, it wasn't that Brady Cook proved anything to himself or proved anything to you and me or to the fans. He proved to the coaching staff he can go out and throw for 350 yards and hit the downfield pass, because they might have thought it before last week. They might have seen it in practice, but now they know it. And I think that impacts the way you call a game now, because you go from having a guy where, well, we think maybe he can do this, to a guy can do this. And I think that changes your mindset going into games.
I think so. And I think it would be important that they let him keep throwing the ball. They let him, whatever they had cooking last week, they need to do it again. I wonder how much of the running game comes in. I wonder for these, like, I feel like just because he seems like a tough kid and he doesn't like to slide, he will inevitably scramble whenever things get shaky instead of throwing the ball away, which sometimes is good. Sometimes when you have I've heard 3 different things for hyperextended knee, bone bruise, and sprain. When you got whatever that is, it may not be as good.
Right. Well, and look, I still expect some scrambles. Like, it's going to happen. Hey, there are times you got to take off. I don't think we see. I'm not sure we see any designed runs.
Yeah.
I don't think we should.
I don't know. They shouldn't, but I don't know.
Save it for a gotta have it time, right? Like, if you're 3rd and 2, early 4th quarter, 1-score game, and Brady Cook says he can get 2 yards, cool, run him then. I'm fine with it.
Oh, yeah, like that goal line play.
I don't need to see a quarterback draw on the first series of the game.
Right. Yeah. Maybe save it like that. I think it was a 4th down play that he ran in for a touchdown. Like, I think he faked it to Luther or something versus K-State last week. He did something inside like the 5. He got a rushing touchdown, I believe, like from 30, 40 yards away or something like that. Yeah, save it for that.
Yeah. Nolan says you also change 1 or 2 things and we win by 10. I'm not disputing that. I'm saying that is the line in these games, right? They come down to, my only point was, you're not dismissing Kansas State as a bad team like Missouri beat them by 4 touchdowns last week. That was my only point.
And also, Nolan, that would apply to the other way. Kansas State, were they not I forgot what their biggest lead was, but they could say the same thing too. But like you were saying,
I said,
go ahead.
Yeah, I said on Monday night, I think both teams woke up on Sunday morning and thought they should have won that game by 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, we got our guy in the green room here. I don't really know if it's a green room, but I like to use that phrase. So we're gonna bring him on to the show. Bryan Moss joining us, covers Memphis for Rivals.com. Bryan, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
Not too bad. Appreciate you taking some time. We're just talking. We don't have a clue what to make of this Memphis team because they played two really bad teams and then Navy, which is just you can't judge anything off playing Navy because it's different than everything else. Do you have any idea what this Memphis team is?
No, not really, because even the stats are skewed. Jarod, long time no see, man, buddy. we just when we talked yesterday on my podcast, it's like you can't really trust the stats because Memphis is what I think second in the nation in pass defense. Well, I mean, you played Bethune-Cookman, FCS team, and you played Navy. Navy doesn't throw, even though they throw a little bit, last game. Still, I mean, you can't trust the stats in this one. You don't know what Memphis is get. So when I look at this Memphis team, I try to see trends. I look at what they did the first three games last year to the first three games this year, and the one thing that pops out to me is their third down conversion. Last year, they were 60%, on third and short, which is 1 and 3 yards. This year, they're 40%. So last year, they were 13th in the nation after 3 games. This year, they were 127th. So to me, even though, offensively, you take a look at the scores. The scores indicate, well, Memphis, seems to be all right offensively. There's definitely some question marks this year. I mean, I know last year, the wide receivers, dropped a lot of balls. This year, that seems to be fixed. But that third down, that's one thing that definitely sticks out to me.
Bryan was reading my mind because I was literally about to ask him something about third downs as far as the game. The last 2 games for Missouri on defense, they've given up 17 of 35 on third down. So they're allowing 48% conversion rate on that. And then conversely, Memphis for the year, I think I read was maybe 33, 34%, somewhere in that range on third down throughout the season. Just like how big of an impact is that what this game comes down to? What team can kind of succeed on third down?
I think so. That's a big eyesore to me. With Tim Cramsey's offense, that last year, you were so good on third down, and this year it seems like you're so bad. What happened? You got better wide receivers. You have a better offensive line. It's like, what's going on? And I think Memphis is being too predictable because on third down, this year they're running 80% of the time on third and short. Where last year, just a little bit better, but I mean, it was 75%, but still, I guess more of last year, defenses had to think, well, there is that slight chance that they'll pass it this year. I mean, it's nearly all the time, Memphis is going to run it. So, I think he's just being a little bit too predictable on offense this year.
Well, as Chiefs fans, Jarod and I can advise: do not put in the tight end as quarterback sneak, and do not put in the jet sweep on 3rd and 1. Go somewhere else. So I always preface this question by saying, we know that every coach says, hey, they're fast and athletic and they do multiple things and blah, blah, blah. But beyond the regular coach speak, what is Memphis saying? What are you kind of hearing that Memphis looks at on Missouri and says, this is kind of the key. This is what we've got to be concerned about?
Yeah, to me, what I hear from Memphis is obviously the physicality. On paper, this is going to be the strongest team that they face so far. Obviously SEC, offensive defensive line. I mean, you're not going to see that at Bethune-Cookman. You're definitely not going to see that at Arkansas State or Navy because Navy's, undersized on their offensive and defensive line. So the battle of the trenches is where I see that, the Memphis coaching staff and players, that's what they're really looking at. They need to control the offensive defensive lines, that line of scrimmage. Because when you look at the Memphis games, there's especially last game against Navy, the first drive of the first quarter and the last drive of the first quarter was flawless. I mean, they pushed Navy around, but everything in between, it's like, what happened? I mean, you couldn't block anybody. There's missed assignments. So yeah, the offensive defensive line, that and the third down, to me, those are the keys for Memphis. If Memphis has any chance in this game, you got to convert on third down and you got to get a push off the line.
Bryan, I read something that was like Memphis is in their last 21 games, or 18 of 21 games, they forced a takeaway. And I think they got something like over 45 takeaways, to that standpoint. I mean, what does this defense do so well to be able to force turnovers?
Credit to where credit's due. Coach Matt Barnes, he came in and has just, changed the mentality of this defense. They brought in, some transfer portal guys that they haven't missed on that. I guess the high school recruiting, you missed a little bit more, but they had to get this right on defense, and they went out and got guys. Guys like Simeon Blair, who played for Arkansas last year. He's been phenomenal this year for them. Andreas Fox from Fresno State. He plays that buck linebacker / defensive end position. That's a name that I did not expect to hear much this year because of Jalen Allen being there. But Andreas Fox, watch for him because he has a motor, just has a knack for the ball. So just his tenacity, his aggressiveness, and that's something that you really haven't seen from the Memphis defenses in the past. You'd have to go way back to, I think, 2014 when, Gabe's buddy, Barry Odom was the defensive coordinator for Memphis. When I look at this Memphis defense, it reminds me of a Barry Odom defense back from the 2014. So just the tenacity, just the knack for the football and pay attention to detail. And they're going to need it. I think they're going to be pressed against the pass defense. We'll see how good they are. We think they've improved, but they really haven't been tested. So we'll just have to wait and see.
I wish we had a producer to cut you out of calling Barry my buddy, because I'm going to take hell for that on our board now. But I want to jump off the field in this one a little bit. You and I we talked and teamed up a little bit in getting this story that this game was in St. Louis a few months ago. Yeah. I doubt the players care much one way or the other, right? But is there some animosity on Memphis's side still about this whole thing? Is there any, I mean, hey, I understand they got some money out of it, but I would imagine they would rather be playing this game at home.
Yeah, obviously they want to be playing at home. I think you don't hear too much animosity from the players. I think the ones that the players that, have the animosity are the players from Memphis. Maybe that their family is not able to make the trip to St. Louis or something like that. But, it just pretty much it's all Memphis fans. We're losing a home game. Why do we got to play up there? But you're well compensated. So, while I think, some players will be feisty and have that chip on their shoulder. I was like, for the most part, the players, they just want to play. They see Missouri as, Power 5. We have a chance to, upset a Power 5. It really doesn't matter where the game's played for, in their opinion.
And I want to jump in here and just follow up on that. I mean, when you think about it, again, the players don't care. But when you think about it, obviously, Memphis probably has a better chance to win this game if it's in Memphis, right?
Yes.
So you're looking at a situation, these kind of decisions, man, people don't think about. If you get to the end of the year and you're 5-7 instead of 6-6, or 8-4 instead of 9-3, this is impacting where you're playing a bowl game. If you're playing a bowl game, it's impacting bonuses. 3 years down the road, if a coach is on the hot seat, nobody's going, well, we know we took $1 million to send you to St. Nobody cares about that. And it kind of amazes me how some of these decisions just get made. Hey, we'll take the 1.2 or whatever it was. But the people that are making the decisions aren't actually the people that are affected by these decisions.
Yeah. And I can understand why Memphis, obviously, they wanted to keep the game. And I mean, it's great that they got money out of the deal because look, they're trying to, renovate the Liberty Bowl. And there's, been a hoopla who's getting the majority of the state money. Is it, the Grizzlies or the Tigers, so to me, you obviously, like you said, Memphis would rather have the game in Memphis, one, because, obviously you can host recruits, here with the game being in St. Louis, Memphis loses that chance to host recruits. But also Memphis needs money. So, you just, when you take a look at it, Memphis definitely has a better chance, winning the game if it was in Memphis, because they have a, pretty good home record. And, the SEC and playing in Memphis, it favors Memphis. But, you can ask, Ole Miss and Mississippi State and others.
Yeah, I was about to say, Brian, you kind of alluded to it, but I just read that in the last 26 games versus non-conference opponents at home, Memphis is 25-1. So it's kind of like a big swing to go from what you just said as far as hosting recruits and all that other stuff, and what it does on the football field for them to host these P5 teams and then not be there. Question I want to bring to you is just we talked about Blake Watson earlier, and he just seems like the do-it-all back. He's obviously the leading rusher. I think he's either first or second in receiving. If not, it's really close. I know him and Rock Taylor are tied in receptions. I mean, just how good is he?
Yeah, Blake Watson is one of those guys. He's shifty. He runs with power, and that's something that Memphis, Memphis has an act or has the ability to put running backs in the NFL. Going back to Darrell Henderson, Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson, even though he was more of a wide receiver when he was at Memphis, Kenny Gainwell. But when you look at the past 2 years, I think ever since Kenny Gainwell opted out in 2019, they've missed that back that could, really do it all. And I think, Blake Watson is one of those guys that can do it all. Now, Memphis is blessed that they have, they can go 4 or 5 deep. Sutton Smith I think he's a true sophomore. Watch out for this kid because, him in open space. I mean, that's Memphis would love to get him in open space because he could tear it up. But Blake Watson, he has that, that seasoned mentality because he's a little bit older. So, watch for him. But the whole thing is the offensive line because, Blake Watson won't do anything if, with that offensive line the way they've played the first couple of games.
Brian, you were talking about the offensive and defensive line being maybe the biggest concern for Memphis. Do you think is there a place you look at that they come in this game and you say, hey, I think this is actually an edge for Memphis. I think this is where Memphis maybe can exploit something.
Well, if looking at the game film, I did it quickly. At times it seems like Mizzou will give you the middle of the field. Well, Memphis hasn't done a great job of taking what the defenses give them this year. And it's like, I'm screaming, at the screen sometimes, and like, the middle of the field's wide open. Why won't you take it? So I think Memphis can exploit that, but they just have to do it. And I haven't seen it this year. Another thing is, because I think Missouri will blitz, Hennigan a lot because Hennigan, he's a pretty accurate passer. I think he's at 71% this year. But under pressure, I mean, that drops off the top of my head. I think that drops down to closer to 50%. So, but here's the thing: in the past, they utilized that, that running back screen or the wide receiver screen. I haven't seen much of that this year. So, to me, Memphis, it would behoove them to, put that in the game plan this week because Missouri on that fast defense, that screen is a good offset. So, hopefully, if you're a Memphis fan, they'll want to see some of those screens and going across the middle, but I haven't seen it yet this year.
Brian, we've talked a lot about the offense, but what about defense? Who's the key player to watch, key players that Missouri has to be aware of?
Yeah, I mentioned the main guy earlier, Simeon Blair. I mean, he's by far the best on the defense. He came in; it was just an instant starter. I mean, without playing a game, he was named a captain. I mean, just the leadership that he has. The other safety, Greg Rubin, he played cornerback last year. So he's a junior now. He's a Memphis kid, so he's starting to he has the ability to play any position in the secondary. But on that defensive line, look for Andreas Fox. I mentioned him earlier. He's someone that came over from Fresno State, and it's just someone that I didn't expect to see this year. But yeah, Memphis is going to need something out of that defensive line, this week against Missouri. So, I'm looking at Joshua White. I think he was a 4-star kid coming out of high school. He's a redshirt freshman. Kamarte Hamilton, came over from Ohio State. So, Memphis needs some of these guys to step up. At linebacker, look for Chandler Martin. Yeah, he was at East Tennessee State last year, and this kid, he flies all over the field. So, he's definitely one to watch. And if everything, comes together, like Memphis fans hope, it might be a good, good game for Memphis. But we'll see. I'm very skeptical about this game.
Bryan, I want to wrap you up with a couple of quick ones. First of all, we got one from somebody that's watching live with us here who apparently is an HBCU economist. So if you have a need for that in your life, reach out after the show is over. But would like to ask Bryan whether this year's version of Memphis is improved over last year. Are they a better team?
To me, they are a better team on the offensive line. They're a better team on the defensive line. Have they shown it so far this year? I think, it's yet to be seen because of the quality of play that, who they played. But I do think this year's team would beat last year's team, to me, easily.
Yeah. All right. So we'll wrap you up here. I never force anybody to give me a score. If you want to give one, we'll take it. But kind of what are you expecting out of this game?
Yeah, I went back and forth at the end of the Navy game. I texted my staff and I'm like, Memphis is going to get blown out. I feel that it's going to be like another 66-30, something like it was last time. But started studying and started looking at the game. There's some things that Memphis can do. I just don't know if they will do it. So yeah, I said on my podcast last night, I think Missouri wins 38-17.
All right. Well, appreciate your time, man. If you guys want to check out Bryan and his staff, everything they've done this week, Tiger Sports Report, memphis.rivals.com. And appreciate your time, man. We'll talk to you later on.
All right. You guys have a good one.
All right. That is Bryan Moss, covers the Memphis Tigers for us at Rivals. And all right. Hey, pretty good overall viewpoint. Find it interesting, that he thinks Missouri wins this one fairly comfortably. I think Missouri wins this one fairly comfortably. I just think the start is slow.
Yeah. I just feel like they'll have some lulls. I don't know if it'll be the start, but at some point, like kind of how that third quarter was just pretty bad for Missouri overall. And then kind of after Brady got hurt for that end of the second quarter, it wasn't really anything going. Somebody's asking for us to predict, so I'll go ahead. Right now I'm leaning towards 29-13, 29-17. I'll probably say 29-17-ish score where Missouri is pretty comfortable. Maybe it's a late touchdown, late to like really seal it, but I think Missouri wins by 2 possessions.
Yeah, I think we've all got Missouri winning and covering. Somewhere 2 to 3 touchdowns is kind of where we all see it going. 6:30 Saturday night, ESPNU. We will have coverage for you guys throughout from the Dome. We'll have the live game chat. Jarod's preview is going up tomorrow. I don't know, man. I feel like we've hit every angle. Any angle we didn't hit?
No. Well, the day after tomorrow, do I have something? No, I think it's day after tomorrow. Preview's going up Saturday morning.
Preview's going up day after tomorrow. Dude, I don't know what day it is ever.
Oh, trust me. It's been me all week. But anything else? No, I think the last thing is just third down. They've got to be both teams, but obviously Missouri, they got to get off the field. 17-35, your last 2 games giving up on third down is atrocious. And Memphis can put up points, and the longer they stay in this game, worse it's going to get. So they better kind of lock them down once they get to third down, and definitely no fourth down conversions either.
My prediction for this one, beyond a score, is and somebody brought it up earlier in the chat, Luther going to put on a show in his hometown. I think we're going to see Luther really want to do some things in this game.
What we got? You got any bold predictions? Like any?
How about this? How about we see Luther Burden throw a pass?
That would be
would bring back the Wildcats. See Luther Burden throw a pass in St. Louis.
That'd be something. That'd be something.
Yep.
I don't know if I got something wacky as far as a play call, but I definitely can see if he goes crazy like that. Maybe we talking about 150.
I'm thinking 125, 150, 2 scores.
Oh, that's heavy. I'll say this. I think he'll have his third straight 100-yard game. I think he gets just 1 touchdown. I don't know if he gets it. I think they're going to spread the love to Mookie. They're going to let Mookie get in on it on the action.
You heard it here, guys. Luther Burden, touchdown catch, touchdown pass. Missouri wins. Just want to finish out. I see Brendan has asked for an update on Brady Cook. We covered that at the beginning of the show. Brady practiced yesterday. They're promoting him on social media. I'm going to be shocked if he doesn't start this game. He's going to start this game, and we'll see where it goes from there. But you'll see Brady Cook on the field for Missouri on Saturday. We will be there. Yeah. I don't know. I'm out of stuff to say. Jarod, we'll see you Saturday, man.
All right. See y'all Saturday.
All right, guys. Do me a favor. Like the channel or like the show. Subscribe to the channel. Do all those things. Put the podcast up. Share that on social media. We will talk to you later on.